Hello, this is Kenneth Reese, founder, owner, and operator of WataugaOnline.com. I'd like to lead off today by extending well wishes to you, the viewer, and your family and friends as we all continue to adjust to COVID-19 concerns and the aftermath. Today, I'm privileged to be joined by Senator Deanna Ballard, our representative for the 45th District, which along with Watauga County includes Allegheny, Ashe, Surrey, and Wilkes. And with that, I say thank you, Senator, for joining in today. It's good to see you.
It's great to see you too, and thank you for the opportunity to be on and just kind of give a little bit of an update on what I've been working on with some of our state legislators.
Oh, and you are so busy. How busy is she? Now, I'm telling the viewer here, she is a member of 14 committees in the Senate. 14. That includes, you're the chairperson, correct me if I'm wrong, of the Education and Higher Education Committee.
Correct. Yep, that's right.
And you're also, we'll talk about one of the other committees you're on in a moment, but having said all of that, how have you adjusted to meeting your colleagues in Raleigh over this last month?
Well, definitely, just like everyone else in the community, I mean, we are kind of staying close to home and getting our jobs done. I spend a lot of time on the phone, conference calls, but yet also taking on constituent case calls and trying to help facilitate just appropriate resources and access to resources for them. We're doing a lot of Zoom calls too, it's kind of different medium, a web, I think it's a WebEx platform that we're using too. So I'm kind of getting exposed to a lot of different avenues in which, we're all able to really see each other as well as kind of talk through potential, solutions and next steps and what we need to take care of. So it's been fun at the same time. I mean, it's good. And I think everyone's learning a lot, and just being able to engage in this way is just, it's positive.
So can you give us a little more of an overview of the concerns, the major concerns that you're hearing most from your constituents and other folks regarding the virus? I would think loss of income and unemployment is right there at the top, if not at the top.
Right. I mean, I definitely, I would say a lot of my day is spent kind of helping constituents navigate some of this, the Department of Employment Services, a lot of the unemployment claims that are coming in. Folks have been waiting on phones for 6 hours at a time, or trying to get access online and having difficulties and never being able to get through, or even just to reset a password on an account. I mean, will take multiple days. So I have spent a lot of time trying to help streamline some of that, get some direct actual person-to-person, contact with constituents. I mean, as folks know, I think as of Friday, we were over about 630,000 claims that have been filed at this point. And so just to give that some context, typically I would say DES does about 3,200 in a week. So now they're doing close to 20,000 in a day.
Unbelievable.
So, there's definitely been some concern on our end just from, how to facilitate that surge and how to ensure that folks are going to get the dollars that they need to get them through this time. We have been trying to look at what the federal legislation that had been worked on with the CARES Act and what was going to come through on some of that. So we've been tracking that. But again, the agency at the state level, underneath the governor's, management and authority, I think, just really wasn't quite prepared for a lot of that surge to take place. And so I do know that they've built, they've kind of strengthened their IT capacity so that folks can kind of get in a little bit smoother, kind of waiting to hear back on how that's going a little bit. But I do know also on Friday that they announced they're going to probably triple their workforce by the end of next week. So they're definitely, increasing the call center contractors along the way. So we'll be hopeful, continue to just kind of track that. And if folks continue to have problems, I encourage them to reach out. And I'll do my best to really kind of get you some answers as quickly as we can in some direction. Because I know it's a struggle and it's a challenging time for so many. So,
and that's
been going on. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to add in there, there again, is it fair enough to say that to some degree anyway, your hands are kind of tied until you see what the federal folks are going to do? Is that fair
Yeah,
enough to say, or?
yeah, and I think that's kind of what the governor had even asked for us to wait and kind of see too, kind of what federal dollars were going to come down. And but you know, I think the state's going to be looking at ways to how we can sort of partner. And I mean, we have a strong unemployment reserve.
Mm-hmm.
So I think North Carolina is in a great position compared to in a better position compared to a lot of other states, thankfully. So I know we're able to kind of resource that, but at the same time, it's an area of, you know, we can't really deplete everything either. So I mean, I think North Carolina will be looking at possibly ways to, you know, modifications to our own unemployment and maybe the length of time of benefits. But those are items when we go back in on the 28th that, you know, we'll kind of be talking about. So we'll see.
When you say go back in on the 28th, well,
Mhm.
that'll still be through your Zoom meetings and viral. I mean, you're not
Actually, no, we're actually going to report into the chamber. So
really.
yeah, this past week, we have agreed with kind of both parties, both caucuses in the House and in the Senate, as well as just with some outside folks, and we're making arrangements for us to be able to come in and convene and continue to be about the people's business and the people's work. So we'll be practicing, I'm sure, some social distancing,
Mm-hmm.
like in the chamber itself. I do think we're probably going to be spread out a little bit more. I think that any committee meetings that were to take place or possibly take place will be virtual. I don't think we'll be all in a committee room together. And at this point, I think there will be access just for like credentialed press
Yeah.
and staff, but it's not open to the public. So we are, you know, the mechanics of all of that are still coming together, but that's kind of the direction that we're working towards and working with right now.
And that's only, well, as of this recording, we're doing it on Sunday evening. So that's what, 9 days away, 8 days
Yeah, I
away?
guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mentioned a little bit earlier that you're on the Education and Higher Education Committee. You're also on the Information Technology Committee. And I feel like, and I guess we all feel like, both of those are working hand in hand, probably more now than ever before. Can you talk a little bit about either committee,
Sure.
the work that you've had to do over the past month that you were not maybe expecting to have to do?
Well, it's really interesting. I think when you're forced into a crisis situation like this, you know, there are areas of challenges and then areas of opportunity. And I think, if anything, both have been really revealing itself throughout all of this. And one
Mm-hmm.
area that I would love to recognize is just how our local school districts, even across my district, have really been innovative, have really just pivoted strongly in such a way to, you know, to really accommodate students and do their best to continue some sort of instruction,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be, you know, through hard copy packets that are sent home to kids, or whether it's, you know, through Zoom meeting or Google Classroom meetings. Some teachers across the district really have stepped up to the plate, but as well as, you know, our bus drivers and nutritional workers and some of our non-certified personnel and just the leadership within a school itself. Everyone has really kind of, I think, come together. And I think that that's something that a lot of school communities will really hold on to. And I don't think that's a feeling that will really sort of, you know, fade away anytime soon. So I hope we can foster that and continue to strengthen that too. As far as challenges, if anything, I think we all are aware of, particularly in our district, just with some lack of internet access and broadband. And so what this has done is, you know, we've known that these exist. We've asked questions. I also sit on Information Technology, Department of Information Technology Oversight Committee. And so we had a committee meeting in February where I asked the agency director, you know, when they're talking homework gap, I'm asking specifically, can you define for me the road, the house, the street address, anything to kind of narrow in what that actual gap is and what those bookends look like, so I know how to close the gap and
Mm-hmm.
how I can like come up with steps to do that. And at the time, they could not give me the information. So I think if anything, this is raising, even at DIT's level, it's just really heightened that need.
Yeah.
Not only for students that need, access to their school learning platforms, but also, I mean, I've talked to the faculty at Appalachian State. So I've talked with people who work and who are now, being, basically mandated to stay home, but yet don't have access to do the job they need to do. So I do think you're going to see some concerted efforts, clearly moving forward, which I'm thoroughly, really just challenged by and excited about at the same time, to really hold some folks accountable and how we can really pull these pieces together from the infrastructures piece to the connectivity with providers, to where the need is at its core. And I think it's going to really take a targeted approach. So I'm eager to kind of get involved on that and keep moving that forward. There's been a lot of work done. There has been work done. It's not to say that it's just been sitting there and nothing's been done. It's just, I think if anything, this crisis has really amplified that need even more. And so I know Watauga County has, there's a certain area over in Deep Gap with, at least, maybe 20% of our students possibly do not have, connectivity. Yeah. So I'm definitely keeping tabs on those needs and what areas those are, but also trying to zero in a little bit more and then work with our providers and what can be done.
And it's been great to see here on the local level, and I'm sure other school districts have done this too, but and you probably know a little bit more about this than I do, but they put some internet, we'll call them distribution devices, on some buses.
Oh, yeah.
And park them in various parts of the county. To my knowledge, that has never been done before, not here in Watauga.
Right.
I mean, some would say, well, it didn't need to be, but, that's neither here nor there. The other thing, I personally think for our area, this will be very beneficial during our winter weather days.
Yeah.
And as I had an interview with Dr. Elliott, Scott Elliott, the other day, on average, Watauga County misses 22 days in winter. That's on average. In recent years, a whole lot less than that. And so hopefully, I think from a local perspective, and not just for Watauga, but Ashe, Avery, our mountain counties, maybe we can find a way to be able to use this in wintertime and maybe not have to go to middle of June or late June as we do some years.
Right, and that's something I'm hoping we can just keep encouraging even state board members, the Department of Public Instruction, other legislators, but and also local leadership in these counties to understand how to maximize these opportunities of remote learning. And whether it's like e-learning days or we call it remote learning days, like how can we really start to fold some of that into more of our, opportunities and like kind of part of our schedule to a degree. I mean, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that can take away from in-person and face-to-face instruction, in my opinion. They're replaceable. But I do think we also need to be mindful and not diminish just kind of other learning opportunities that are out there.
All right, we had a little bit of a Zoom issue there, and I'm sure a lot of folks that are using Zoom and other platforms have too. You, the viewer, will not notice because hopefully my editing skills will make it seem seamless. But from the senator's point of view in our conversation, we're going to go back to talking about technology, schools, how everything that has evolved now may help our mountain counties in the winter, and not only just the students, but teachers, faculty, staff, administrators.
Right. And, I think that's what's just to reiterate that point that, this is not something adding digital technology to your classroom or to your school day for instruction is not replacing that face-to-face instruction that you get from a teacher. And so I think that's just one thing we're really wanting to figure out how to kind of weave into a little bit of the programming of the day in our school calendars possibly, or into, the calendar year as a whole. And then just kind of keep, really just keep moving forward. I mean, the education in North Carolina is really poised to kind of reinvent itself almost and look a little different than it has in the last 30 years. And I've heard some, great story. I've heard it's such a mixed bag of experiences across the state throughout all this, where some, of course, there's a lot of inequity going on between who has access and who doesn't. But then there's also teachers who have really continued to introduce new like soft material into their day, and kids are still learning, and kids are still doing homework, and kids are still doing, getting some grades. So I just am super eager to kind of see where these next steps will go. And, some students have learned that, it's offered a little bit more even personalized instruction for them, because it's maybe them and the teacher them, as opposed to in the classroom where there's 18 to 20 other students.
Exactly.
They're actually kind of engaging a little bit more directly, and sometimes that's more beneficial even to the outcomes and student success. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of after action reports of all of this from across the counties, and see what our teachers and our educators are thinking. I've been remaining plugged in to a lot of our educators on the ground, and that's just kind of where I'm getting any of my information and concerns and recommendations. I spent a lot of time on the phone with superintendents, of course, but then also the academic officers across the districts, and then just teachers themselves, and then families and how the parents are doing, because I really do struggle and concern for teachers who are also parents. So they're also teaching a classroom of students, but then they're also having multiple kids at home that they're trying to instruct in their own work.
And this would be a good time, I think, too, that if you are an educator in Senator Ballard's district, or even not, but in North Carolina, but especially in your district, again, Watauga County, Allegheny, Ashe, Surrey, and Wilkes, if you're a parent, feel free to reach out to Senator Ballard with your concerns, or encouragement about the technology, because like you said, it will never totally replace in person. But personally, and I'm just a tech geek myself, I think there are going to be so many positives come out of this as far as technology and education are concerned.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm just trying to reassure folks and just continuing to encourage people that this is just a great opportunity for us, and not to be so overwhelmed by just the sudden change and the disruption. I mean, naturally, it's been disruptive, but also just trying to just encourage folks along the way.
Well, I won't take up too much of your time. You have been so gracious to spend part of your Sunday here. And like I said, I know you have got 1,000 things going on. I could have 30 more minutes worth of questions, but by the time I ask them, they'll probably be irrelevant, because this has changed. I say this, COVID-19 has changed everything, events, literally by the minute for the last month or more. And from a news perspective, it has just been astounding to me to see how much information is changing just by the minute. And the same thing is happening now in Raleigh with senators and House members and the governor and Department of Health, and because it's just such a fast-moving situation, and will continue to be. As we start to wrap up here, is there anything in closing you'd like to leave us with or add, or?
Yeah, I mean, probably just a couple of things. I mean, one thing we
Sure.
haven't really talked a lot about is just kind of the healthcare side of it, and the hospitalizations, and I mean, our healthcare workers, the county health officials. So I really do want to, in particularly, like say thank you to those frontline workers right now, and the amount of engagement and interaction they're doing just with the community, and within their own working community and their own staff. So, I think we've seen number of hospitalizations are not growing as quickly as they were 2 weeks ago.
Thank goodness.
And so that's if we see that continue to slow down, and we get past the peak, and we're minimizing the loss of life, across the state, and that's a positive for sure. We are working with the state on trying to gather more data, comprehensive data, even tracking more recoveries, and how many people are being tested that are negative. A lot of the information we get is really just kind of positive counts, but
Yeah.
Nothing's really been this released regarding like discharges from hospitals, and we know that information's out there. So we are trying to also just continue to gather as much data and information as we can, because that's going to be important. All of that factored in is important for kind of how we gear up and reopen North Carolina, which is essential.
And it's going to be even, I'll say, doubly important, because we don't know what's going to happen this fall. Is there going to be another, for lack of a better term, variation.
Right.
I started to say mutation, but that's not right. The variation of this COVID-19. Some of the national doctors in President Trump's office kind of leading us to believe that that very well could be the possibility. But I tie that back into what you say about the numbers, the facts and figures. Those are going to be extremely important moving into the fall as well.
Yeah, and I'm on Friday. I was on a call with App Healthcare, Jen Green and her team, and county officials and the hospital, and just uh, everyone really kind of engaging and trying to just really get as much and deliver as much accurate information as possible. So I'm still relying on our boots on the ground here, really. I mean, to
Mm-hmm.
get those specifics as we move forward, and just again, just really encouraged by the amount of work, all the work that they're doing just across the district. Just for your own awareness, across the district, I have about, I think, 35 positive cases. So out of about 200,000 people, that's how much the district roughly, the size wise is. I mean, there are about 35 cases, and we've had one death. So compared to other areas of the state, in Mecklenburg County in particular.
Wake County, that
Right.
area down there, yeah.
So, but yeah, and again, just a shout out to all our education leaders just across the district. I really have loved seeing just the resourcefulness and the level of innovation that's happening outside the classroom and in the communities and in the homes. So I think we just need to continue to foster that and be focused on that quality of instruction that's happening, and the quality of the teacher. I mean, that's what's critical, whether you're in the living room or in the classroom too. And it's really understanding how to serve and best meet those needs of those kids, and just making sure they're fed as well. And so trying to do our best that we can in that area.
And what a terrific job all of the school districts have done with the meal distributions. It's just been absolutely amazing to watch their hard work. Before we started recording, there was one important thing too you wanted to
Yeah.
mention:
I
the
did want to mention this
census.
before we wrap up, but again, now that folks are home and you have maybe a little bit of time at home, don't forget to go complete the 2020 census. I've actually served on the governor's census commission over the last year, and so just I again can't reiterate how important that is moving forward. But it really kind of helps folks understand how to meet some of those transportation and emergency readiness needs.
Mm-hmm.
Determines the number of seats in each state in the U.S. House of Reps, and at the levels of government within state.
And
And it
where
also
and where
directs
money.
billions of dollars. Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say the
we were
money.
we were on the same page there. Decides where a lot, as you just said, billions of dollars goes.
Right. So again, just reminder, go check that out. You can go to my2020census.gov.
Excellent. Well, once again, thank you so much for your time. As I said to lead off this interview, 14 committees you're on, and that doesn't even involve the media requests from folks like me to talk and your constituents to talk to and everybody else. So I appreciate you taking part of your Sunday afternoon. And again, if you're just joining us, go back and watch the start of this broadcast as it'll be on YouTube. That's Senator Deanna Ballard, District 45, Allegheny, Ashe, Surrey, Watauga, and Wilkes counties. I'm Kenneth Reese, founder, owner, and operator of WataugaOnline.com, and we'll catch you a little later on.